Alongside Bryan Hayes. Bryan, is it just me? I don't want to hyperbolize here, but did you get a sense there is now a seismic shift in the leadership and the way they're now running this organization moving forward? When you bring in a Craig Berube who says, I'm all about the team. The team's all that matters. All that matters to me is the team. Doesn't even want to mention a single player. Do you think this is step one of this organization saying, don't be surprised if we really shake things up here?
I think that's their plan, but ultimately, as you know, Gino, the power still lies in the hands of the players and their agents. If we're talking about the core players, they all have no movement clauses. They all have no trade clauses. They're all paid exorbitant amounts of money. And this
is
the
gravy train stopping now? That's my question.
It had to stop years ago. I don't know if that's truly going to be the case. You have Matthews done, you have Nylander done, right? And those are big contracts.
Those are long-term deals.
A lot of gravy,
they're not going anywhere.
A lot of gravy, really good players. They're worth a fortune. They bring a lot to the table. Very
you got the Tavares deal that you're not going to be able to move.
But that's 1 year left at a big ticket. Mitch Marner's got 1 year left at a big ticket. After
that's the big one.
That's the big one, and they can make that call. And listen, Mitch Marner's going to have to be a part of that, right? Craig Berube spoke of partnership with the players. As of right now, Mitch Marner's a Maple Leaf. He's not leaving just because Craig Berube's been hired, right? He has power in this. He has a say in this. I'll believe it when I see it. I've been saying it since the end of the year. I will believe it when I see it that they truly make significant change. I think they want to. I think they need to. Can they? Will they? Will it make sense? Will the chips fall and they get the right trades? How much power is still in the hands of the players? It's all still up in the air right now. This might have been a step for sure. And I might argue that Brad Treliving coming in last year was probably the beginning of that, even prior to Berube coming in. And Berube, he has a standard of coaching. He has a standard of playing that he is going to force these players to bring to the table. It's on them to collectively accept it and believe that it's going to lead to more winning in the future. But the players still hold a lot of power, man. This is a players' league for a reason.
They do, because you gave them the power.
Yes.
Tree kept up emphasizing, I want guys to stop talking about the core four. I want guys to stop talking about the core five. You know how you stop talking about them? If suddenly somebody in that core four or core five gets moved, and then you say, oh, wait a minute, now it's about the team. Which brings us to Mitch Marner. Historically, over the last decade, since Auston Matthews came into this league, we basically go to the top players in the team and say, what's it going to take to keep you here? Give us a number. Whatever the number you say is, fine, it's yours. Tavares, fine, it's yours. Auston Matthews, yeah, absolutely. Nylander, absolutely. Mitch Marner, absolutely. If they're going to stick to their guns with what they were saying today, does it stop on the Mitch Marner where they say, listen, man, you don't fit. That dollar figure doesn't fit with us. Understand right now, we are not extending you. Does this open the door for Brad Treliving to explain, I told you this was coming?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, again, actions will speak louder than words.
You're not convinced
in
they'll
press
follow
conferences.
Through on it?
Well, I think they should. I think they want to. I do genuinely believe that the Maple Leafs, Brad Treliving, Brendan Shanahan, they understand that this has been a 8-year window of the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era. 8 years, Gino. Yeah. And there's been a lot of positivity. Don't get me wrong. The playoffs speak for themselves.
Yeah, one playoff win.
They have to
That's
own
awesome.
that, for
one
sure.
Playoff
but they go to
round.
the playoffs every single year. They all put up massive numbers. They go to the All-Star game, right? Matthews has won a Hart. They've done a lot of
for 70 goals, and we all know how much that meant now.
But fans enjoy that. Like, you can't downplay the fact that during the regular season, there has been a lot of excitement here. You know what it was like prior to these guys arriving. Yeah. It was miserable in Toronto for the better part of a decade. So it's not like it was a complete disaster, but 8 years is enough. I believe the fan base is completely finished with it. They want to see change. I have to believe the front office sees it the same way. Matthews is not going anywhere. Nylander's not going anywhere. Tavares, because he's only got a year left at a big ticket, he may stick around. He's your captain, local guy. They may decide to keep him, and then they'll move. Marner obviously is the odd man out. He's been the odd man out since before the playoffs. You and I remember having that conversation before it. Who has the most pressure on them for a big run? I said Marner at the time, and I stand on that now because of what has transpired here. It failed, it didn't work, and someone was going to go. He is the guy. And I don't know if he fits in terms of the way Berube coaches, the way Berube wants to see his team play. But the same questions have to apply to Nylander, Matthews. Are they going to change their game? I don't know. They have to. They're here. And they should take it upon themselves to understand we need to win. This team needs to win. Auston Matthews has done everything. He's got to win. That means if it's scaling back in certain areas, playing a different style, playing a different system, he's got to accept that. But yes, I think to round back to the starting line here, I think Marner is going to be the odd man out. But We know this, Gino. He's got power in this. Yeah. He's got a full no move, full no trade. He's not just going to say, go ahead, send me anywhere you want. That's not going to happen.
But is he more likely to waive now that he understands this is the new direction this team is headed?
I don't
where
think
accountability matters more. You don't think it matters at all?
I don't think today mattered. Listen, he's from Toronto. He's well aware of how the marketplace is reacting. I think he's well aware. It all started with the original contract negotiation. That's when it really started, where some people within the market and the fan base started to turn a little bit on Marner or put more heat and more emphasis on his style of play. And the failures in the playoffs in particular, a lot of times it's outweighed. It's probably too much on his plate. It is a team sport. Other guys weren't exactly lights out when they were supposed to be as well. But that's when it started. So he's been aware of it. He's been aware of all the noise. He's aware of the numbers. Mitch Marner's not stupid. He knows Matthews got his deal. He knows Willie got his deal. Matthews was always a different beast. Marner probably didn't want to accept that, doesn't want to believe that he's in a different category. But he always has been, and he always will be. And his contract and that number established that. Nylander v. Marner was always the debate in this market, right? Who's the better player? Who's the guy you want to build with, build around? Who deserves more money? I think the Leafs gave you that answer. They said it's William Nylander. They're not going to do it again, and I think Mitch Marner's aware of that.
All right, now moving forward, you've been following this team now for, I want to say, decades.
Yes.
You've been a fan of this team for decades.
Yes.
You've seen them go through the cap era right now, where better than 53% of their cap starting this upcoming season is going to be spent on 4 guys. Trillion's not going to like the fact that I mentioned that, but it's a fact.
Yes.
So does this completely change their spending habits beginning July 1st this summer that says, here's now how we're going to start spending our money?
That is what I think fans need to embrace here and understand. Where they spend their money, that's what this is all about. It's a math equation. That's what the NHL is about. There's a finite number. I know there's ways to circumvent it. The Leafs do it. Vegas does it famously.
Tampa's done it.
A lot of teams do it. But ultimately, you have a finite number. This is what you can spend, and you can basically gauge how much it's going to go up by every single year. Where are you going to spend your money? For the last 5 years, 6 years, they have determined they're going to spend it predominantly on 4 forwards, and then throw a bunch of change at Morgan Rielly, and then we'll figure it out. I think ultimately that's where it starts. You've got to get away from a lot of that money in the core 4, and you got to find out where you're going to spend your money. They need a number 1 goalie. They need multiple defensemen, and if John Tavares is not a part of the program this year, or certainly the year after that, you got to find a second-line center, and I'd argue a third-line center. David Kampf is a fourth-line center. You have a first-line center in Matthews, a fourth-line center in David Kampf. That's a hole up the middle of the ice, 3 or 4 defensemen, and a number 1 goalie. There's a lot of work to do here. A lot of work to do, but ultimately they got to find the money first to be able to get that work done.
You got 15 seconds, and you work in radio. You know how to do this.
Yes.
Give me 15 seconds on how long you think it's going to take, if this is indeed the new philosophy and they stick to it, till they turn it around to a team that can go deep in the playoffs.
13 and a half months. Next July 1st, I think, is when you can start the clock, because you may have to get through this season with Tavares on the books. Who knows what happens with Mitch Marner, right? And I'm not sure they can get everything done they need to this summer when it comes to defense, when it comes to that number 1 goalie. This year, I think they'll still be a playoff team. They'll have talent. They'll be a good team. Craig Berube will give them a boost. But I'm not banking on them taking massive strides this year. I think it's the year after where they really start to put pieces in place.
13 and a half months. It was Bryan Hayes. Send your cards and letters and comments to him.